Hello and welcome back to another Eat Sleep Boxing Repeat video. Tonight I'm delighted to be joined by Elliott Grigg. Tonight we'll be discussing the recently announced Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall rematch. Firstly, Elliott, how are you, brother?
Very good, Owen. Thank you very much for having me and for facilitating this conversation. Obviously, excited about the news, which we're gonna get into now. But yeah, first and foremost, excited. So yeah, thank you very much for having me.
So yeah, as we said, we're here to discuss the inevitable rematch with Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall. It's an important rematch for many reasons we will get onto in this video. Firstly, Elliott, I would say it's after the first fight was with the controversy. Realistically, this was the only fight to be made for either fighter. So, what are your initial thoughts on the rematch being announced?
Um, my initial thoughts are like you were saying, actually, like it's inevitable that it had to happen. I know it seemed like for a while that Taylor might try and skirt it initially and sort of move up in weight. Obviously, there was issues. Well, they were suggesting there might be potential issues with him making that weight and looking drained. That might be the reason behind his performance. But frankly, he was beaten so comprehensively that I feel like this had to happen. One of those decisions where you look at it almost unanimously, people suggesting that he lost. I can't anyone that doesn't say that other than sort of Josh Taylor himself and people that have closely associated with Josh Taylor himself. Everyone else is sort of like, hand on heart, yeah, you lost that fight sort of thing, whether it's weight or whatever. So I think in some ways, after giving him a bit of a bashing, actually, we should probably turn around and go fair play to Josh Taylor actually for stepping back in and taking this. We've seen, through boxing through the years that people have just gone, oh, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to,
Yeah.
I've come through a close fight there. Don't necessarily want to go down to it, move up in weight, forget about it sort of thing. Let Catterall fight for the fragmented belts down in that division. So he deserves massive credit, actually, for taking this, is my initial thoughts, actually, to counterbalance, I suppose, some of the abuse that he's been receiving.
No, I completely agree. Obviously, the rumours were Josh Taylor was potentially moving up. He was looking at vacating all his bouts and moving up the weights. It's been more Jack Catterall screaming for this fight, and like you say, he's got absolutely every right to demand the immediate rematch. I personally thought he won quite comfortably, but here we are. Fair, like you say, fair play to Josh Taylor because it did appear that he was going the opposite route, which we've seen many times before in boxing. One thing I did want to touch on the back of his last performance, Josh Taylor has now switched to Joe McNally. Now, Joe McNally is getting a good little stable together. I know he sort of started making his name when he had Big David Price. Price he retired, and then he was sort of training a couple of UFC fighters and got Liam Smith. What do you make on the back of the last fight? The fact that Josh Taylor has decided to change his trainer for this rematch.
I think it's a good move, actually, from Josh Taylor, to be perfectly honest. I feel like I don't necessarily want to lean into the previous trainer too much that he had, but I mean that the trainer that he did have has got a reputation essentially for being more, I suppose, of a personal trainer and a fitness guy rather than a genuine boxing head. And I know that obviously he makes certain noises around watching fights and studying fights, whatever. But I think for me, a concern would be even when Josh Taylor went with him initially was that sense of obviously saw what happened with Fury when he was a high profile trainer there and people in boxing, essentially turning away from him there. We've seen what happened recently with Lee Wood. I mean, Lee Wood obviously got through that Conlan fight, but let's make no bones about it. He was losing that fight fairly convincingly
Absolutely.
until that stage. So I feel like he's got out of jail there, got out of jail with this decision, training Taylor for Catterall. And I feel like in a way, Taylor, just needs to essentially. I actually, I know it's obviously a money issue, but I liked him with Shane McGuigan personally. I think Shane McGuigan's a really good trainer, but I think I like the fact that Taylor's gone away from the relationship he did have just recently, and has gone with someone who in the industry is respected. And yeah, I think frankly it's a good move. Go with someone obviously, like you said, it's lower profile in a way, even though Joe Manali's got, like you said, and the fighters he's worked with has got, I suppose, like I said, a solid stable. He's got experience, obviously. Doesn't necessarily have the profile, like we said, of Ben Davison, but I think actually it's a really good decision. And I commend it, and I'm looking forward to seeing the outcome, the fruits of their labour, as it were.
No, I completely agree with pretty much everything you said there. I feel like although it was a bad night for Taylor in the first fight, and Davidson could be made a scapegoat, like you say, when you look at the history of your likes of your Lee Woods, your Tyson Furies, it's putting two and two together and getting four really. There's a track record now of fighters leaving and improving. I mean, you look at Fury, much better performances. So for someone of that stature to be able to do it screams a lot to me. Heading into the rematch, do you think either fighter, game plan wise, do you think Catterall will stay the same, or do you think Josh Taylor will be completely different? I know it's a bit of a tough question, but I was just thinking, will because it's going to be a game of chess because they're both going to be thinking, is either fighter going to go for the same game plan? But one thing I did want to ask you was, do you think Josh Taylor needs to completely change his game plan to get in with Catterall? Because I'd imagine Catterall, he's spoke about the amateurs, the previous Catterall just wants to go in there and knock his head off, really. But what do you think Josh Taylor needs to do?
I think it's a very good question. It's a very good question. I think when you were talking about it, my initial gut reaction actually though is like, I always think about these rematches, like when we had Yard versus Arthur. For me, it's another one of those where you sort of think, my gut reaction is actually I think Josh Taylor's going to win this. Initially, I feel like, and the reason I'm going to say that is because I feel like Catterall got everything right the first time round, boxed absolutely beautifully. I mean, Taylor was obviously inactive down the stretch. He landed like 6 punches in the last 3 rounds or something ridiculous. Looked out of sorts, but I almost feel like the motivation he's going to have coming into this, I think we will see a different Josh Taylor. I think we'll obviously see a more active Josh Taylor. We'll have to see a more active Josh Taylor. And I think, I would expect that, we've seen him obviously in those big fights before for Gray, which was also a close fight. Some had him losing that, but that was a good performance. Being a lot more active, essentially, throwing a lot more shots. And I feel like he's going to need that, essentially, against Catterall and almost try and... It seemed like last time, didn't it? He seemed like he started off, he got beaten to the punch a bit and then just kind of went into himself, went into his shell, sort of down the stretch especially. It kind of ebbed and flowed a bit, but Catterall was sort of dominant throughout. And I felt like Catterall maintained his work rate and Taylor sort of fell off. People put that down to the weight. But I think going into it this time, I don't think he's going to leave obviously any stone unturned. He seems obviously ultra motivated, essentially, to set the wrongs right that he felt over the first fight. So I feel like we'll just see him essentially maybe make weight better. I think there were issues in the camp the first time, essentially, where he said he lost weight too quickly towards the end and wasn't necessarily as on point as he should have been going through that camp. Whether that's complacency or whether it was just, issues, personal issues or whatever it was. I feel like this time it's going to be a different Josh Taylor, more motivated Josh Taylor, and one that essentially will actually prevail. I'm not sure how you feel about sort of style-wise. I'm trying to think about whether I've answered that accurately enough. Style-wise, I suppose really for me it's a case of if the best Josh Taylor turns up, as we've seen him in previous fights, I actually still expect him to win. But that's taking nothing away from Josh. I just feel like he's climbed the mountain, as it were. So it's going to be hard to get back to that level and have it as easy as he had it previously, or seemingly as easy as he had it previously for us spectating. So, I mean, how about you? How do you feel tactic-wise? Yes, approach at Taylor.
I feel like I am guilty for overlooking Catterall. I thought it was going to... Catterall's a good boxer. There's no denying that, but I just thought there's levels to the game, and I just thought Taylor was levels above Catterall. I completely underestimated Catterall, and I do genuinely feel, as professional as Josh Taylor is, it may have been part of the reason why he's changed trainer, but I think Josh Taylor overlooked him as well. I think Taylor thought he was going to waltz in, be a fairly easy night's work for him. Not necessarily school him, but it wouldn't be a Pagres or a Ramirez where they were catching him, and it was sort of, okay, I'm in for a fight here. I'm in for a tough night. I think he thought he was going to go in and wipe the floor with Jack Catterall, to be fair. I think game plan might not necessarily be different. I think his output will be a lot heavier, especially, like you say, towards the latter rounds. I think a big focus, personally, I think will be on the weight, because he did look a bit gaunt on the scales. I know he's made the weight many times in the past, but there was sort of documented struggles. So I think it'll be a cleaner cut. And I think, like you say, I do agree. I think we'll see a much better Josh Taylor on the night. And personally, I do think the best Josh Taylor beats the best Jack Catterall. But it's certainly an interesting one. It's an important fight for British boxing. There's a lot of wrongs to be put right. And I'm fantastic that it's been announced for the rematch. Elliott, thank you for giving me your thoughts and thank you for joining me tonight. To everyone watching, check out all our videos. Keep an eye out for Greg's prediction video, as he will be dropping one of those. And once again, Elliott, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much, Owen. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, guys, for watching. And yeah, we march on. We look forward to seeing the outcome of this one.